Welcome to SDHC's Health and Wellbeing podcast. Before we begin, we want to emphasise that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date content, it is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Always seek the guidance of your doctor or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Remember, your health and well-being are invaluable, so prioritise consulting with a medical professional for your personalised care. Hi everybody, you're listening to the Health and Wellbeing podcast from South Downs Health and Care with your host, Dr Nick Harvey. The purpose of this show is to help people understand how they can help themselves and others with their health and well-being. Every episode, I interview an everyday expert to understand the latest evidence and advice on how to improve your own health and to help others. This month, I'm excited to welcome Dr Roger Prentis. Together we'll explore a vital topic, male well-being. Welcome.
Thanks, Nick. Lovely to be here with you.
It's great to have you too. So Roger started his career in medical research at St Bart's Hospital in London and went on to become a computer systems specialist. His background in mental health led him to consultancy and training, where he specialises in the development of people's and organisations' potential. He's an NLP master practitioner and master hypnotherapist. He also uses these skills to help people overcome post-traumatic stress, volunteering with a charity. Roger's lived in a number of countries and worked with commercial, not-for-profit, NGO and governmental organisations. His strategic and analytical skills add to his soft skills to bring a wide breadth of depth and knowledge, expertise and experience from many sectors, countries and backgrounds. He specialises in working at board level as well as senior management, and his particular interest in leadership development, communications and media training. He was a special advisor to the Chief of Staff in the House of Lords for 10 years, where he also regularly chaired meetings and arranged events. He's worked with the UN, a variety of diplomatic and educational clients, and has a particular interest in Asia, the Middle and Far East. Crikey, Roger, makes me exhausted looking at your career path. Tell me a bit about you and how you managed that and how you managed not to go crazy with your career.
Well, I think someone once said to me, "Oh, you've had a portfolio career," and I didn't know what that was, so I had to look it up. And it's a term I love because it means I can make an excuse for the way I approach my career, which was basically doing things I've enjoyed, looking for opportunities, and then following those opportunities to see what happened. So as you, it's what a glowing introduction. Thank you. I feel somewhat embarrassed and wonder who this person is. But I started off in medical research with a keen interest in mental health and hallucinogenic drugs, actually, and their effects on the mind, and then went into various things. So at the hospital, I drifted into computing, which took me another route, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, in answer to your question, it's those changes that have kept me sort of sane, if you want to put it like that. I know some people hate change, but I thrive on change. One of the things we do in our work is we help people with teams, and we have our own personality profiling instrument, and we talk to them about how different personality profiles will be affected by different things. And my profile suggests, and it's actually true, that I enjoy change and thrive on it.
Fantastic. I've been doing some profiling myself recently, and you can't understate the importance of kind of going with your character traits, I think, isn't it?
I think so. And it's never that you have weaknesses. It's just you have areas where it's not your default, your normal, natural way of turning up. So in our profile, my weakest style, if you like, is ordered. And yet I can be extremely ordered if I need to be. I do the programming for our website. And if you know anything about computer programming, you know that you have to have every comma and semicolon and bracket and everything else in the right place. Otherwise, the whole thing falls to pieces. So when I'm doing that, I am beyond ordered, but it's not my default way of turning up in the world. I tend to be somewhat less ordered.
So you've found things to do that suit that. Fantastic. So before we dive into the topic of male well-being, I'm interested to find out what do you find most challenging about your current work in consultancy, and what do you love about it?
Well, I think for everybody, it's one thing. It's a crowded market in this country. We love working in other countries, and that's part of the reason we do it. We have some specialist areas where we are sort of kind of at the top, in inverted commas, of what we do. Midlife is one of them. So we were amongst the leaders in menopause. We started around 10, 12 years ago, long before the Davina effect, and we could get menopause shampoo and probably menopause dog food. We started male well-being at exactly the same time, because we are all about inclusivity and also helping organizations to support their staff. One of the challenges we have is the current economic situation in this country and probably in the world. Unfortunately, it's a fact of life. We have to pay the bills, mortgages, and our favorite supermarket and things. So we have to earn money. And that becomes challenging when the country is basically, a lot of it is not in the best place it could be. So that's one of the things. And in terms of what we're here today to discuss, male well-being, one of the biggest challenges is to get males, and I include myself in this, to do something about their well-being. I've changed over the years. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but I'm still very much a work in progress.
Mm-hmm. So are you happy to kind of maybe expand on where you see the work that you'd need to do in terms of your well-being?
Well, I think it's an ongoing thing. The important thing, so when we're running our sessions on male well-being, which we do for the NHS, we do for public sector organisations, we do for private sector organisations and charities. One of the cartoons that I have in my slide deck, my PowerPoint presentation, is of an ostrich with its head buried in the sand. Of course, ostriches really don't do that, but it's an image we have in our minds for some reason. And I think my approach to my own well-being was very much like that. I'll give you an example. I used to teach karate up to about 8-10 years ago. And honestly, I wrecked my body doing that, and I had to have hip replacement. And I was in hospital having the hip replacement, just had the operation that morning, and another guy came into the ward opposite me, in the bed opposite me, and I got talking to him and found that it was his second hip replacement for the same hip in 12 months. Had it done in Spain, they messed it up, had to wait a year, then have it redone. But during those 12 months, he'd actually had bowel cancer. So I said, look, I work in this area. Do you mind? It could be embarrassing, and please don't answer if you don't feel comfortable, but did you not notice something going on? He said, well, yeah, I noticed a bit of blood in my poo and this, that, and the other. But didn't you do anything about it? Oh, I didn't want to bother anyone. I thought it would go away. And he was in stage 3, stage 4 bowel cancer. He was probably at a 5-year survival level of about 30%. He had a third of his gut removed, and he was very, very lucky to be alive, but he'd gone through an awful lot of unpleasantness to be there, to have another operation on the same hip. I mean, some people really do have it a bit difficult, don't they? Mm-hmm. So my message is, I suppose, is know you're normal. You know how your body normally reacts. You know how you normally feel about things, whether it's psychologically, how you react to pressure, how you react to humor, whether it's physically, what your body feels like when you go out for a walk or a run or do whatever you do, and so on. And if you notice any change that goes on for a while, do something about it. Go and seek help. It may well be nothing, but if it is something, seeking help and getting it early, the end result will be a lot better. The prognosis will be hugely better. Bowel cancer, for example, survival rate at 5 years is more like 90%. Whereas if you leave it to stage 4, it goes down to 30%. So if you catch these things early, prostate cancer even more. Stage 1 prostate cancer, or a very early prostate cancer, it's almost 100% survival rate. If you catch it at stage 4, again, it goes down to around 30%. So catch these things early. So if you're male, or you have males in your life, which most of us do, either look after your own well-being or encourage them to look after their own well-being. Be supportive. Don't nag them and whinge at them, because that, if it's me, it has the opposite effect. I will go the other way just to be awkward and difficult and whatever. But be supportive and constructive and encourage them. And for males, I often hear guys say to me, oh, it's a bit selfish to look after your own well-being. And I said, well, no, it's not, is it? Do you have people around you that are important to you? Oh, well, yeah, of course I do. I've got, maybe a partner, maybe family, friends, colleagues at work. So, well, do you want to be there to help them? Yeah, of course I do. Well, it's like the oxygen mask in the plane, isn't it? If you put yours on, you'll be there to help others. If you don't, you're not going to be there to help others. So look after yourself. It's not being selfish. It's looking after yourself so then you can give back to other people. And actually, by the way, there's nothing wrong with looking after yourself. You'll be less burden on the NHS and you'll have a much more pleasurable, hopefully a better quality of life and possibly even a better quantity of life as well.
Absolutely. I think you're also uncovering this thing about why would you look after yourself? I think it's about loving yourself, isn't it? And making sure, you give yourself the time and the space that you need. I often come across people, actually, it's me, in the sense of I need the mind space of going for a run, for example, for me. And for a long time I've looked at it, and even now find myself thinking I'm being selfish, spend some time with the family or whatever. But actually I need it. And that, we shouldn't be ashamed of that, should we?
Absolutely not. And look at two instances. Yesterday, we were running training sessions. They were all online. We had one of our free evening meetings with Professor Talalika last night. I was online for around 11 and a half hours. Honestly, all I wanted to do was have a quick nibble and go and sleep because my eyes had gone square. My body wasn't tired, though. So you go to bed and your mind's exhausted, but your body's saying, hang on a minute, what have you done? You haven't done anything. You're just sitting around polishing the chair with your backside all day. You haven't done anything useful. So in terms of work, if we take that time to have a rest, often our productivity will go up and we will be more than compensated for that short time we've taken out. It could only be 15, 20 minutes. Just go up for a walk around the block or just stretch your legs, relax your eyes. So if we look after us, and I'm with you, I'm not a runner, but I love walking and, particularly where we are down here in the South Downs and some beautiful countryside around. But even if it's around a city when I'm away working or something, getting out for that walk, it does you physically good. It's good for your physical well-being. And for me, and I think a lot of others, I think many people during COVID discovered the power of nature, getting out there and being at one, if you like, with nature. I don't want to sound too tree huggy, but I think most people relate to getting out there and getting some fresh air and relaxing, and it lets your mind relax. And if you are sort of in the moment, sort of a bit mindful when you're walking and you're observing whatever it is that's around you. So trees, nature, flowers, animals, even walking around the streets, there'll be birds and people walking dogs and things. It's just being in that moment and letting your mind relax and de-stress. It's incredibly valuable.
Mm-hmm. And it has more than just cognitive effects, doesn't it? I think so. It affects your stress hormone levels and all sorts of things. It's in your heart rate and lots of things, doesn't it? I know you've got some experience with helping people make those steps or helping set up organisations to help people to make those steps. Do you want to share a bit of that?
Yeah, sure. Interestingly, when I was studying myself, I was involved with something, it was a student thing called Nightline, which is a bit like Samaritans for Students, run by students. And I ended up running that at my university. And I've always been interested in mental health and mental well-being from a very young age. And it's something I carried forward through life, which took me to my research in mental health. And just before COVID, there's a group actually local to the surgery, Nick, that started up called Mankind. And it was a bit of a struggle as all of these groups set up. The two guys who run it, Paul and Ian, they'd had an unfortunate experience with a friend who died through suicide, and it motivated them to get it up and running. And they've been absolutely heroic getting this up. It's not easy to run these things and get them going. And now it's a really flourishing organization. It's helped loads of people. We know that it's helped people. It's saved with lives as much as that. And they meet every week, and it's really, really important. And I'm now working with another group in Hastings and St Leonard's called the Men's Room. They are a fledgling group, but they have high expectations. So they're just setting up. They've just registered as a CIC, a community interest company, and they're setting up, and we've given them already some of our training free to help get some males involved. It is a male group, to get some males involved and to get some community engagement. And we've got another session of training booked in the back end of November when they get a venue sorted out. And we'll go in and we'll run one of our training sessions again free to everybody so they can get people to come along and to kickstart the group. These groups do a huge amount of valuable work.
Absolutely. And you were touching on, before we started recording, how, when it comes to it, mankind's prevented suicide.
Absolutely. We know that, I would say, at least a dozen people dying through suicide has been avoided through mankind. I would guess that it's probably significantly more than that. Suicide is tragic. It affects everybody. Clearly, the poor person who's in that situation themselves, their family, their friends, their colleagues. One suicide a year in the whole world is one too many. Anything we can do to help people avoid that, the better. And again, going back to knowing our normal and going back to knowing the normal of those around us. So if you and I were to work together, I'd know how you react to a joke. I'd know what you sound like when you come in the morning, how you walk down the corridor and things like that. And if I notice a significant difference, not a difference that's for a day or so, because we all have good and bad days, but a difference that goes on maybe for, 10 days, a couple of weeks, to me, that's a kind of a red flag. Oh, I wonder what's going on. Let's just check in and see what's going on. So I might say to you, yeah, Nick, how's things? Oh, fine. No, really, how are things? And it's that second question that sometimes will elicit the response. Not always, but sometimes it will. And showing that you are there to be supportive, inclusive, and everything else is so important. And again, if you've got males in your life, if you are male, do these things. It's so important to check in with people.
I think you're right with that second question. Also, I think just allowing for some silence. It takes a lot of people some time to bring their thoughts and bring their courage to speak up, doesn't it?
It does. We find in our society, I don't really know about other societies, silence being kind of embarrassing or difficult. But sometimes asking a question and then just sitting there, and I found this particularly with the therapy work around post-traumatic stress. If I keep talking, the other person is being bombarded with stuff, which may be useful or not useful to them. It may be relevant or not relevant to them. So it's much better I ask them a question or engage with them, then give them space to process it and think. And, putting it brutally, sometimes people will respond because they feel they have to fill that silence. And that can often be a really good way of starting the conversation. We're really talking about getting a conversation going. So if you've got males around you and you want to engage in that, sometimes sharing with people is a really good way. It's giving them permission. They don't need permission, but it's kind of giving them permission to share with you. You hear the stories of the manager, my door's always open, you can come and tell me all your problems, but they never share anything. So who's going to go and tell them their problems? I work for someone like that. And, at my annual appraisal every year, there'd be a list of things that started the day after my annual appraisal last year that I hadn't done right or didn't go right or whatever. There'd be this list of problems. It's much better to, if you want people to engage with you, then engage with them. Share a little bit. Obviously, you only share what you're happy to share with, but just share a bit and show them that you're a safe person to talk to.
I think extending that as well is important too, isn't it? In the sense of sharing one's vulnerability makes it not just safe to talk to them, but normalizes the fact that we all have our vulnerabilities. I guess you can't do that in counselling, but I think in relationships, professional or personal, we're probably not vulnerable enough with each other, are we?
I grew up in an environment where my father used to, I can't remember whether he actually said it, but there was an implied thing, if you showed weakness, it was weakness. And I learnt as I've slowly grown up, I'm still growing up and I'll get there one day maybe, I've learnt that showing vulnerability, showing weakness is not weakness, it's a huge strength. Because if you reveal a vulnerability, you are opening yourself up to all sorts of potential stuff. And what you find mostly with all decent people is they won't exploit that. They'll actually be they'll often admire you for sharing stuff, and then it may encourage them to share some of their stuff. So it's like, as you say, with the therapy work, it's not the therapist telling the client all about their lives, but showing that you empathize, showing that you understand, and maybe that you've been somewhere similar or you know about something similar is very valuable, because it makes you a safe person. You understand, you know where I'm coming from. You've kind of been there yourself, or at least you know a lot about people who have been there.
Tricky balance, though, isn't it? I guess you can't overdo it either. But I've certainly learned a lot from people who have just shared those little insecurities that they have that help put it in a better light, the insecurities I have.
Yeah. And we all, I'm making a generalization and an assumption that we all have them. I've not yet met anyone that I'm aware of that has none. There may be some. I'd be fascinated to meet them, but we all have these. And, there's nothing wrong with sharing them, because if it helps other people, and actually it helps you, there's that saying, a problem shared is a problem halved. I don't think that's true, but certainly when I share something that's concerning me, I feel a weight lifted off my shoulders. And that's going back to having these, opening the conversation, getting the conversation, normalizing, as you said, normalizing the conversation, making it okay to talk about this stuff, a safe environment.
I often think about my homework as a child when we're like this, because when you talk a problem out, you often see the solution yourself, don't you? And I don't know if you necessarily need more from the listener than their ears. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. It's interesting. We were chatting beforehand, and I think I may have mentioned already, we were running an online training course, training people to be menopause cafe facilitators for a full day yesterday, which is a really big, heavy-duty course for the participants, and a bit for us, of course. So we were 8 hours online for that, and then we had 1.5 hours online for our free monthly talk with Professor Talaulika. And, it's really having that space, I suppose, and sharing and being able to talk about things. Yeah.
So coming on to, say, organisations, workplaces, educational institutions, even governments, since you've worked there, how can we play in improving mental health awareness and support for men?
A lot's been done around mental health in recent years, thank goodness, and there is still a long way to go. It's now in a lot of places, not enough, but a lot of places, okay to talk about issues that you may be having with your mental well-being. That's not true universally. Even within our country, there are different geographical areas, there are different sectors. The construction industry is quite a sort of muscle and strength-based sort of industry, so it tends to be a bit more alpha male, if I can put it like that, whatever that means. So there are some places it's easier to share than others. The important thing is to get the conversation going, to offer people support, to offer people training where that's appropriate, and show that particularly in organisations, there's that saying, all training is an investment. Well, I'm sure it is. And if I went on an Excel spreadsheet training course, it probably would be an investment. I'm not quite sure what the return on that investment may be. Maybe I'll be a little bit quicker at working out formulae in spreadsheets. But the stuff that we're doing, supporting people, looking after looking after their stress, developing their well-being, building their resilience, understanding more about midlife, the menopause, male midlife, male well-being in general, they really are investments, because if an organisation, whatever sector it is, whether it's the police, the NHS, private sector or governmental, local government, national government, investing in people with this really is, because if you can save people being off sick, someone that's off sick with a mental health problem could well be off sick for quite an extended time. That's going to have a huge impact on the poor person involved, their family, their friends, if they have family, their colleagues, workload of the department and the organisation. So a small investment, which may sound like it is an amount of money out of the budget, but that small investment could easily recoup tens, if not hundreds of times reward for making that investment. If we look after our people, we have a duty of care to look after our people. But actually, why do we even need to think about that? Surely it's the right thing to do. If you employ people, unless you're in, one of these sort of sweatshop type mentalities, you value your people. They're there to do the work. You need them and you want them to do the work that they're employed to do. And you need them to be productive. And by the way, they need to be productive. They need to have a fulfilled life, a worthwhile job. They need to have a meaning and purpose, and of course an income. And if we take that away from them by allowing their well-being to be adversely affected by not supporting them, we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot, really. Apart from the fact, in my book, it's the right thing to do. We don't need to think about legislation and protected characteristics and, tribunals and things. It's just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And as you say, not only does it prevent sick days, improves efficiency, recruitment, retention, the whole lot, isn't it? And I think there's well documented evidence that £1 invested in the ways you suggest result in at least £10 saved, isn't it? And that's
Absolutely.
Very clear.
And today, in my early career, one went along to an interview and it was a one-way thing. They asked you questions, and if you performed adequately, they may or may not take you on. Now, recruitment and retention is a two-way thing. People will research the company on social media, online, and find out, what are people saying about this company? Are they a decent company? Are they interested in the environment? Do they look after their staff? What's their staff turnover rate? These things are readily available. In my early career, nothing was available like that, but now people can find it. And talking to young people, if they're going to apply for a job in Fred or Frida's coffee shop, they'll go and research it first. Do they use ethical products? Are they into the environment? Do they look after their staff? Why did the last person leave? And if you don't tick the right boxes, people won't come and work for you. And they certainly won't come, they won't stay with you. Again, going back to my dear father, the attitude in his day was, you don't train people because they'll leave and they'll go and find a better job somewhere else. My attitude is, train people, support people, and make them not want to go somewhere else to find a better job. If you're going to put that training in, then look after them and keep them, because why would you do it otherwise?
I absolutely love a Richard Branson quote: train people so they can work anywhere, but treat them so they'll stay.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think his business model proves that works too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There are companies out there that don't treat people so well, but also work as a business. So it's pretty tricky, isn't it? But I think it fundamentally also comes down to our humanistic values, really, doesn't it? And do you really want to work in a business that doesn't value the people?
Exactly. And it's sort of, ethics sounds like a very sort of highfalutin word, but it's really our values, as you say, our personal values and our corporate values. And yes, you have to run your business as a business, otherwise it won't exist and it won't produce whatever it produces and it won't give employment to whoever it employs. And you can support the people to make sure that that's as good as it possibly can be. You retain your staff, you develop them, they work, as you said, they work as efficiently and effectively as possible. They have as few days off sick as possible. I mean, that's no good for them, their families, their colleagues, and it's certainly no good for the organisation. So again, as you said, it's that 10-to-1 return on investment. Make that relatively small investment to make the huge saving. You put £1,000 into training staff and you save, maybe 20 sick days per year. It depends on your organisation, but that probably equates to an awful lot more than £1,000.
Absolutely. I think, though, the training does need to be strategic in the sense, isn't it? I don't know the work that you do in organisations, but I think simply a manager saying, you go and do this training isn't going to work, is it? And it's about a cultural shift in an organisation, isn't it? And what sort of role do you play there?
That's an interesting thing. We do have people, we have a particular course that we were asked to develop around stress, managing stress and developing resilience. And we do have people who are told by their managers to come along to that. And some of them benefit greatly and some of them feel a bit resistant, as indeed I probably would if I were told by my manager to go along to something like that. We don't believe that's the best way. Sometimes it's the only way to encourage people to do something, and we acknowledge that, but we would much rather be carrots than sticks, if I can put it like that. So it's recognizing the return on the investment for the person coming to the training. They're not necessarily paying for it themselves, although their company, probably their organization is, but they are paying for it in terms of taking time out of their normal job, whether it be a half-day training course or a 1.5 hour lunch and learn, or a full-day training course like we did yesterday. We had a consultant medic yesterday on our full day's training. She took a whole day out of her time to be with us to train, and that is absolutely awesome. That doesn't happen very often, but making that investment, she knew what the return on investment for her would be, and that's really important. So why am I going on this training? We ask people, what encouraged you to come on this training today? And they'll often say, oh, well, I'm having this sort of things going on, or this, that, and the other, and I want to get this. Well, what do you want to get out of today? Oh, we want to get this, that, and the other. Well, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We're covering that. If there's something we haven't covered, then let's talk about it, or talk about it offline afterwards.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's move the topic on a little bit. Mindfulness is a word battered around a lot, isn't it? Tell me about that.
Mindfulness is very interesting, and it's something I'm not too keen on. That's purely a personal thing, and yet I kind of do it. I'm very old-fashioned. I love having a nice hot bath and soaking in a bath when I can afford the time and whatever. I find it very relaxing, particularly if I've got aching muscles from walking a long way and things like that. And I find that that's my mindfulness moment. My mind goes walkabout, if you like, and it drifts around. I often find solutions to problems that I'm not even thinking about. Mindfulness is something that became popularized probably, 5-10 years ago. I was still working in Parliament then, and it was the biggest ever all-party parliamentary group. The group had to meet in Westminster Hall, which is the biggest venue you can get in Parliament, because so many people, we were talking about 200 and something people coming along to meetings. I went along to a few. It didn't really gel with me, but for a lot of people, it's really good. For me, it's the first step on a very big ladder. If you're not doing anything, mindfulness is very good. Meditation is very good. Breathing techniques are very good. There are lots of things, and it's a very good way. If you're not doing anything, then give it a try. If you find it doesn't work for you, then find something else, but do something. Because like you said earlier, having that time, allowing yourself that time to recalibrate, if I can put it like that, is really important. And actually your performance, whether that's in your social life or your business life, will increase if you allow yourself to have that time. So mindfulness is very good. We have a friendly Buddhist Lama, and she did a talk for me in the House of Lords when I was working there. I got in to do a talk, and she talked about mindfulness and said it's the first step on the very big ladder. So I stole that from her. Thank you very much, Lama Zangmo, for that. But, it is true, and it's a good start, and it may get you interested. It may be enough for you, but doing something is really important to look after ourselves, whoever we are.
Do you have any particular tips then of that step onto the first ladder then, to use that analogy? So, for example, taking 2 minutes, focus on your breathing every 90 minutes or something. What are the tools that you suggest?
Gosh, there are so many, and it really depends on the person. I think the important thing is to recognize the value yourself, and that it's an investment that you will get benefit from. You may decide that mindfulness is the thing for you. You talked about breathing. Breathing exercises are really good. There's loads online. If you go to your favorite search engine and put breathing exercises, you'll probably get about 50 million hits. Use a bit of critical thinking. There are things called box breathing, which is you have a mental model of a square. You breathe in for 4, you hold your breath for 4, you breathe out for 4, you hold your breath for 4, and then you breathe in for 4, etc. I don't find that works. I get distracted by counting to 1 to 4, and I forget about the breathing side. Breathing is really good. When I learnt hypnosis, breathing is a very important thing, and breathing in, and particularly relaxing your shoulders and your neck muscles, really important. So, a deep breath in, deep breath out, and letting your shoulders and your neck relax is a very good way, particularly if you're having sleep problems. It's a good way to get into sleep. So there are lots of things you can do, and it will really depend on what works for you. find what works, but experiment, see what it works. If you find you try something, it doesn't work, don't say, it's a complete waste of time, it's not worth doing anything. Yeah, it is worth doing something. Just find what works for you.
I think one of the things that stop people exploring that is it sounds like mumbo jumbo, isn't it? Are you happy to share some of the reasons why it isn't mumbo jumbo?
Well, the best reason is it works. There's probably a whole wealth of psychology and goodness only knows what behind it. But actually, it's like when we do our training is always evidence-based. But we don't talk about, Jones et al., 2018 in JAMA or something. We talk about the end results. If I go along to a training, it's so what? What can I do with this stuff when I walk out the door this afternoon, tomorrow morning, next week, next month? And these things really work. And if you try them, you'll find that they work. You'll prove that they work. The issue is whether you want them to work. And that sounds really strange because you think someone who's in a challenging situation would obviously want to get out of it. But sometimes we need a bit of a kick to get out of that. I found this myself in the past. And if you really genuinely want to make change in your life, then give things a try. If actually you'd kind of like to make change, but it's a bit of an effort at the moment, then just wait a while until it becomes worthwhile. Don't wait too long, because sometimes you may wait too long and it will be more difficult. So again, find your go-to reason. Don't tell yourself, I must do this because it will make me more relaxed. That sort of thing will turn me off completely. So what I would say is, if you did this, what would be the benefits for you for doing this? And let me think, well, I'd feel more relaxed. I'd be less stressed. I'd sleep better. I'd probably perform better at work. Oh, that's interesting. Do you want to do that stuff? Yeah, well, of course I want to do that stuff. Well, why don't you give it a go then and see whether you can work towards achieving that? Because if you've got that goal, that vision that you're working towards, that will pull you. It's the carrot rather than the stick. So it's coachy speak. Rather than away from goals, I want to move away from being unfit, but move towards, I feel fantastic. I run up the stairs. I'm not out of breath. I can walk up Butts Brow locally and get to the top, and I'm not out of breath. And I can see myself standing at the top, looking at the amazing view over Eastbourne and enjoying the sounds of the birds and the wind blowing in the bushes and things. So that go-to motivation is really important.
Interesting. So goal setting.
Goal setting, yeah. Again, touchy-feely, tree-hugging, American, blah, blah, blah. I can think of a lot of excuses why someone, me in the past, would think that this wouldn't work. And you know what? If you think it won't work, your subconscious brain is so powerful, it'll help you with that. Henry Ford is reputed to have said there are some people who think they can and some people who think they can't, and they're both right. So when I met this stuff a very long time ago, I thought it was exactly, tree-hugging sort of, rubbish. And I proved that I was right. And then I saw people around me make changes. And I thought, well, if they can do it, I'm not that stupid. Surely I could give it a try. So I changed my attitude towards it. I changed my belief about it. And guess what? It works. So if you really genuinely want to make change, and you set yourself that go-to goal, that vision, whatever objective, whatever you want to use words that you're comfortable with, that will help you go towards it because you know the benefit. You're working towards the benefit for you. Most people don't need to be told they have to pass their driving test. Most people want to pass their driving test because they want the freedom, the mobility, whatever it is. So the pain and agony and anguish of going through lessons and, what I've got to think about pedestrians as well as change gear and check for traffic and use, mirror signal and maneuver at the same time, it's never going to happen. And then you push through that and it becomes embedded in your subconscious and it becomes normal. And you do that because the benefit of driving is abundantly clear. So that's a go-to goal. That's, I want to drive and I'll go through whatever it takes to get there. Well, if we make the other things in life, like being less stressed, like being more relaxed, like enjoying some time off, going for that run, going for that walk, going for the swim or whatever it is, if we make those go-to goals, we can do exactly the same thing.
Absolutely. Where do you think building habits comes into this? Is that important in your mind?
Absolutely. So things that are very good, habits are very good, but some habits can be not so good. So if you think about habits, when we're born, we can do very little. We can make a lot of noise, we can eat, and we can get rid of the products the other end, and that's probably not far off all we can do, apart from the bodily functions like sweating and breathing and stuff. So almost everything we do in life, we've learned. We've learned to walk, we've learned to talk, we've learned to drive a car, we've learned maybe to type on a keyboard. They're habits, and they're really good habits. But sometimes we pick habits up on the way that may be holding us back, and beliefs that may be holding us back. And these can come from childhood, they can come from parents, inadvertently, of course. They can come from educators, teachers and things. They can come from ourselves. We've developed a habit of doing things. Some of those habits, some of those beliefs are very good, but some of them may be holding us back from developing our potential. And if we realize that, then we can use techniques to change, if you like, the picture in our subconscious mind of who we are, and then change our attitudes, like I did with the sort of personal development stuff. I changed my belief, I changed my attitude, and then it worked. So we can all do that, and we show people how to do that very, very simply. When you learn it, you think, well, there's no big deal, and you're right, there isn't. However, there are decades of experimentation and psychology and learned papers behind it, and it really works. But it'll only work if you want it to.
Sure, yeah. It's about being honest to yourself as well, really. Isn't it?
Sadly, it is. And, some people find it easier to affix blame, to my boss, to the Prime Minister, to the dog that lives next door, to the parking person or whatever it is, than take responsibility for themselves. We have a lot of rights, and with those come responsibilities. I did a meeting in the House of Lords years ago about freedom of speech. And it was really interesting. I had a really fascinating panel of four different people there from all sectors of life. And the conclusion was, which was brilliant, was we have a lot of rights, but we also have responsibilities. I have the right to use free speech, but I have a responsibility to use it mindfully. So I can say horrible things about someone, but why would I? That's not the right thing to do. So I have a right to do that, and I have the responsibility not to do that. So again, I have the responsibility to look after myself. And so why wouldn't I do that?
Mm-hmm. So I'm interested then, if somebody wants to build a healthy habit, do you have some tips?
We've got our Overcoming Overwhelm course, which is actually 2 times 3 hours. It's quite a substantial course. It helps people learn the techniques for doing that. But I think the best way is to develop these go-to goals, these visions, these goals, these objectives, whatever you want to do. We all do it naturally. It's done to us every day. Advertising, this is what advertising does. If you think of advertising, let's say for a mobile phone, so your favorite phone manufacturer will launch a new mobile phone. You'll see the same advert on TV if you watch TV over and over again. Same message repeated over and over again. Very annoying. Yeah, maybe. Some of them are quite good. But what they're doing is they're putting a picture in your subconscious mind without your knowledge and without your permission until now. Now you know about it. And what will happen is your subconscious mind will look for opportunities to go and buy that phone. Does it mean everyone will buy the phone? No, of course it doesn't. But statistically, it's been proven over however many years advertising's been working, which is a long time, that it does work. Sales of washing powder go up 20% when that washing powder is advertised on TV. This stuff works. And we take people through why it works, how it works during the course to help them to understand it. You don't really need to understand how it is, but if you've got a mind like mine, you really do like to understand it, try to understand it, and then it will just work for you if you want to.
So you're talking earlier about some of the take-home messages. Do you just want to revisit those?
Sure. Well, okay, so in terms of male well-being, although we've had a wide-ranging discussion, as one would say, in terms of male well-being, take-home messages, if you are a male, then it's not selfish to look after yourself. If you feel that you need some help with something, whatever it is, go and get it. If you have a partner, talk to your partner, talk to a close friend, talk to colleagues if that's appropriate. Go and seek professional help if you need it. In this day and age, it can be quite difficult to get professional help. It's there, and quite honestly, go and bang on the door until you get it. If you have males in your life, and whether you are male or female or whatever, if you have males in your life, then constructively and supportively encourage them to look after themselves as well. It's not selfish. Looking after me means I can look after, if I look after myself, then I'm there for my family, for partners, for colleagues, and for the people we run training for. If I don't do that, then I can't run the training we run, and I can't help people to take back control of their life and build their resilience and look after their well-being, build their team and improve the communications and that stuff. And that's my passion. So I want to do that. So my go-to is I want to do that. I want to help people and watch them develop and, develop their potential. How am I going to do that? By being around. So I put my oxygen mask on, so I am around, hopefully for a very long time, so I can help as many people as possible.
So look after yourself almost proactively so that you are living healthily, I suppose, be that eating well, sleeping well, exercising your brain as well as your body. But also, I heard from you before, know you're normal. So if things aren't going right, you reflect on that and act on that.
Absolutely. Whether it's me knowing my normal or me knowing your normal and recognizing a change. So, go back to the poor chap in the hospital with the second hip replacement and bowel cancer. He noticed a change in his body. He had blood in his poo. And for me, that would be an alarm bell, and I would be legging it off to the GP surgery as quickly as I could to get things checked out. I don't want to know that I've got bowel cancer, but I'd rather know I've got bowel cancer now than waiting for 18 months' time and dying or going through agony and surviving and lots of operations and losing, a third of my gut. So do something about it. And it's really, really important. So know your normal, know the normal of the people around you. And if you notice a change in that, then be very supportive, be very encouraging. Don't nag them. The worst thing to do, if you nag me, I'll do the opposite. If you say you must eat that piece of cake, I won't eat it. I may really want to eat that piece of cake, but just to spite you, I'm not going to eat it. So don't, particularly with males, it's a very generalization. But if I'm any representation at all, which I may well not be, it's the worst way of getting me to do anything. Again, maybe set them some go-to goals. I've noticed, you're a bit under the weather at the moment. Tell me, how can I help you with that? Ask open-ended questions, not yes, no answer questions. Are you okay? Yes. Can't go very far with that. I've noticed you're not feeling so good. What's going on at the moment? Can I help you with anything? That invites a sentence. You may get a rude answer, but you may not. And then that opens the conversation. Like you said, it's normalizing that conversation and making it safe and okay and supportive to have that conversation with whoever it is. And it's not only male well-being, it's everybody's well-being. If you have a partner, have these open and honest conversations with them. They can be really difficult to start with, but often we find that both of the partners want to have that conversation, but neither of them feels able to do it. As soon as one of them starts it off, the other one's kind of go, oh, thank goodness for that. Now I can offload as well, or now I can talk about my stuff as well. And I think that's really, really important.
Thank you. So I'm hearing, look after yourself, know you're normal, ask questions. Don't nag.
Yeah. And seek help if you need it.
Absolutely. So our last guest was Dr. Miriam Malik, and she was interested to ask this question. Many men feel pressure to conform to traditional ideas of masculinity, which often discourages emotional vulnerability. How do you think this affects men's mental health, and what practical steps can men take to embrace a more balanced approach to emotional well-being? Well, we've probably been talking about that, but let's see how well you can summarise that.
That's a really important question. Some of this alpha male stuff comes from within our own heads, to be honest, for a lot of guys. I must be the breadwinner. I must have a stiff upper lip. I mustn't show emotion. I can't cry. Thank goodness that's changing. And I think with successive generations, males are getting better and better at it. A very generalized point. There is still a lot of social pressure to conform to this alpha male image, and it depends again on the sector you work in. I talked about construction earlier. The legal profession is another one where you can't show vulnerability or your career won't progress, to put it bluntly. alpha male image, it's a really difficult thing. We are encouraged to be more emotionally intelligent, to share our feelings, to participate in daily things. If you have a family, to get involved with children and your partner or whatever. And I think that's really, really important. And it's going back to supporting everyone and supporting yourself. The terms like toxic masculinity, I was reading a paper about that. Can you imagine anyone saying toxic femininity and not ending up in court tomorrow morning? I would hope that would be the case. So why is it okay to use terms like toxic masculinity? Masculinity is not toxic. Some males' behavior is beyond toxic, and we've seen so much of that in the media. Things have unfolded about people who used to be national heroes or big shot business people and all that stuff, and we found that their behavior has been on a different planet of toxicity. But that's not masculinity that's toxic, it's them that's toxic, it's their behavior that's toxic. So I would encourage anyone who hears that term to react to it in the same way as if somebody had said toxic femininity. It's inappropriate, it's holding males in a space and it's really difficult. It sounds a strange thing to say, but it's difficult for males these days to be able to show up in the world. What am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? What can I say that I'm not going to end up being, in social media or on a tribunal or something? How can I express myself, the feelings I want to express? It's like that, the freedom of speech. I'm so worried that I don't say anything because I'm worried someone's going to be offended by it. And we don't want to be offensive to anyone, but we do want to be able to express ourselves. So I think, what can we do? We can all work together, whoever we are. Males on ourselves, males with each other, everybody in society with males and with each other, to ensure we can have these conversations and it's safe to talk and not sort of foist these really obnoxious and prejudicial labels on anybody which hold them back and stop them being able to express themselves. And it may actually, there's evidence to show that things like that severely adversely affect male well-being and may lead to things, to people like dying through suicide and things like that. So don't think this is a small thing. It's a really big thing. And I think we should all, I'm not telling anyone to do anything or not to do anything, but for me, it's something I want to absolutely avoid and do the opposite. Encourage people to be able to express themselves and support them and be inclusive and considerate and be a human being, be a normal person like we were saying earlier. It's the right thing to do. Why wouldn't you?
Absolutely. On that note then, Roger, we'll end it. I think it's a very apt sentence that you finished with. Be human, why wouldn't you? It's been fascinating to talk to you. Really appreciate your insights to a really academic level. In our upcoming podcast, we'll be speaking to Robert Ralph about supporting patients who are prescribed dependence-forming medications. Any questions you might want to pose to him?
Wow, lots. Goodness me. What would I ask him? If I were allowed, I'd say to him, what if you were somebody who felt that they may be adversely affected by a dependence-forming medication? These medications have very valuable clinical uses. Of course they do. And for some people, that clinical use is maybe worn out, if I can put it like that, and it's more of a dependency. So if someone, either themselves or someone around them, were to feel that they're being adversely affected by this, how would you support them? What can they do? Where would you point them? So that they can get help if they need it.
Thank you very much. So I'll definitely scrutinise him on that. Thanks for joining me. It's been really insightful.
Thank you, Nick.
You've been listening to the Health and Wellbeing podcast, where today's focus was on male wellbeing with Dr Roger Prentis and me, Dr Nick Harvey. For more information and resources, check out our website, sdhc.org.uk. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please email us at sdhc.feedback@nhs.net. Join us for our next episode, where Robert Ralph will be coming on to discuss how to support patients prescribed dependence-forming medication. Please take a moment to subscribe to help support us in supporting others with their health and well-being.